So for our next talk is all about server-side rendering. We've been able to do server-side rendering for a while, well, basically since React was released, right? And we certainly were one of the people that felt like we were really clever for figuring out how to do server-side rendering when not many people were doing it. There weren't many tools to help you. It was quite a tricky thing to do, and it certainly added a lot of complexity to your application, even if there were a lot of benefits, right? This got more and more popular over time, and I think a lot of us kind of almost fell out of love with it, kind of went, well, do we really need to render on the server side? Is there actually any point? Well, since then, there's been an amazing company called Zeit, who, if you haven't heard of them, release incredible tools into the ecosystem, things like now.sh. And one of them is called Next.js, which is a sort of framework on top of React to make things much, much easier. So it makes structuring your React applications much easier, but one of the main ones it gives you is server-side rendering, almost out of the box, so you don't have any excuses anymore at all. So to tell you all about Next.js and server-side rendering in Next.js, please welcome Andrico Karoulla.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah. So now that everyone hates React, I'm going to show you that React isn't all that bad. If you use some great little tools, like as my announcer mentioned, forgotten his name already, awkward. Yeah, Next.js. So just heads up, guys, this is my very first meetup talk, so I am really nervous. So I thought the best kind of icebreaker is by doing a live demo. So all I wanted to show you guys is just how super easy and simple it is to set up a Next.js project. So if you look at your package.json file here, is that zoomed in enough, guys? I should have learned how to zoom in. OK. There we are. OK, cheers. So yeah, all we need to start off is just kind of install these three dependencies, Next, React, and React DOM, and then just start this script called an npm run dev. And yeah, and you'll see that you'll throw an error because this is intentional, actually. This isn't part of bad planning. Next requires you to have a pages directory. It's not very opinionated, but it does require to have a couple of things in there. And all the pages directory is just your folder and file hierarchy for routing. So I'm just going to add an index.js file here. And I'm also going to add an account.js file. And I'll do some nesting as well. So let's just do, if we're an ASOS site, we will do like a directory for T-shirts, and then inside of that, a T-shirt file. So the best thing about Next.js, and my personal favorite, is very little boilerplate. So we won't have to add like our import React or anything. We can just export default, and when it bundles, it will add that stuff automatically. So I am going to just create a div with an h1 tag and call it home. And I'm just going to copy that over here and here. Here it's going to get called account. And I'm going to add a little bit of styling here. This is just one of Next.js's really cool out-of-the-box features, which is style JSX. And it just makes it really easy to add component scope styling. So I'll just add an h1 tag here and add a font size of 64 pixels. That'll definitely be big enough for you guys. Did I do something wrong? The anchor sign. Sorry. Cool. So if I run it now, I will hopefully have no errors. And I don't. It compiled successfully. So if we go back to here and access localhost, we will see we've got a home page. If we go to account, we will see we've got our account page with slightly bigger header. And if we go, this is a really cool thing, if we go t-shirt and then t-shirt again, it takes us there. So it's really simple, just kind of adding like nested linking, super clean. And Next.js even has some great kind of tools to clean up your routing, your URLs, if you have loads of kind of parameters in your links. So one last thing I want to add is just kind of going a bit more into Next.js's link feature it has. And it's very, very similar to React Router's link methods, link elements. So if I import link from next link here and create another component, I will do link. And the href is going to be props.location. Need to add the props up in here as well. And let's just close that there. Add our a tag, and that's just going to be called props.text. And this is super easy to just add to our page. Again, we'll just import it like you normally would in your React project. So let's just go to a component and button. And what we'll do here is we'll add our button here, give it a location of home, and a text of home. And that should work. It's compiled, thanks to Next out-of-the-box hot reloading. And there we are. Super easy, super simple. Just a little way to set up a quick app. Obviously, like most people's app, a little better than that, but moving on. So this was my expectation. I don't think it went too badly. I feel like I look kind of cool. And this was my contingency plan. In case it went wrong, I'll just smile and wave. So as you guys might be aware now, Next.js is really easy to set up. I absolutely love it. As the guy before me said, sorry lad, Xi are excellent in the products that they make and in the documentation. So you'll always be in it's kind of in an ecosystem where everyone's super helpful. If you've got any questions, you can just drop it on GitHub and someone will really answer it absolutely quickly. Transpiling and bundling is done out of the box. If you need to extend it, it's super easy to. Just edit webpack config file or your next config file. Hot code reloading, again, out of the box, really easy stuff. Makes your life a lot easier. Static file serving and styles also work really nicely with Next.js. So this is me, Andrico. I am a web developer first, and I'm also a musician second. But before I did web development, I was actually in the family business of fish and chips. Worked with my family, and I wasn't really feeling it, so I just kind of went online, did a few courses, and then kind of became a full-stack web developer, where I got my first job at Win Technologies, where I left quite recently, but I've got a lot of my co-workers supporting me in the crowd, so I really appreciate that, guys. I'm also really into music, so if anyone absolutely wants to talk to me about music, I'll be so happy to. You can hit me up on Twitter and Instagram, and feel free to tell me your favorite tech or your favorite bands or albums you guys are listening to. I'll absolutely love it. So what is SSR? So this is the main part of the talk. So SSR, which means server-side rendering, is essentially when your HTML file or your website is built on the server and then is sent back to you. A really simple way of thinking about it is food shopping. If you go to the shop every time you want a meal, you'll have to make that journey there. The journey inside of the food shop itself doesn't take too long, but then you also have to make the journey back. Whereas it's more sensible to do one food shop, do all of it for the week, and then just make that one journey home. So that's the difference between client-side rendering and server-side rendering. Client-side being many journeys, server-side being one. And you could just say by server-side rendering, It's the time to first byte is a little longer, kind of moving on from that food shopping analogy. But here is a much better and cleaner explanation as to what it is. So with SSR, you're just doing one request, everything is getting built, all your assets, all your images, and you're getting a bigger, thicker response back, which might take a little longer, as opposed to client-side rendering, where you make one request, get one straight away back, your skeleton file, your HTML, and then every time you need an asset or an image or a file, you have to make an additional request. If there is there is a limit of, I think, 6 requests simultaneously. So if you've got loads of images on your site, then it might make sense to have them built all on your server. So this is a kind of a visual representation of client-side rendering. So if you click a modal or a new page, you get all your pop-ins, all your images kind of pop up all at once. Well, actually the opposite of that, one at a time. And it kind of looks a little bit jittery. Not very good UI. Whereas server-side rendering, if you click the About page, everything kind of gets built and it just comes up nice and smooth, even if that little initial load is a little longer. Cool. Work on is actually a little note I made to myself to practice this bit a little more. And apparently I didn't I didn't go back to it. So but no, Next.js and SSR specifically is great for SEO. If you've got a lot of data or you're a big business, this is absolutely pivotal. It is a very strong consideration. The perceived loading of the site goes up. It might not be the first load isn't very fast, but with a few of Next.js's nifty features, it can make your site feel like it's a native web app. And also, like, aside from Next.js, React 16 and Angular 5 do give you some tools to make SSR a lot more simple to integrate in your site. So don't feel restricted to Next.js if you did want to kind of dive into using SSR. So there are a few caveats with using it. For instance, the initial load is a little longer. Time to first byte is a bit bigger. And on top of that, the server requires a little more work, which I'm going to talk about a bit more. And I'm going to talk about ways to kind of improve on this, on these little issues you'd find with using Next.js. Cool. So finally, next, using SSR. So there is very little to say about actually using SSR with Next.js because it just works out of the box. You don't have to do any additional configuration. Everything is just rendered from the server on, from your pages directory. And Next also indexes it as well. So if you go back, switch between pages a lot, everything's going to feel a lot faster. You're not making additional requests to the server. So some really cool features that Next has built in is code splitting. So only the code that you import in your components actually gets bundled with that component. So if you're not using Redux in one of your components, it's not going to get bundled when you split that code up. So that is a good way to kind of shave off precious kilobytes on your bundle size, and it's really easy for your from control resource prioritization, where the server side kind of sees what is most important to load first in case there is any sort of blocking JS or scripts or anything. Another really cool feature is prefetching. All you simply do is just add that prefetch attribute to your link element, the same one that I imported earlier. And what that does, when you've loaded the page initially, all of your pages that have prefetched assigned to it will get loaded in the background. And yeah, as you can imagine, this is awesome because you'll seamlessly transition between pages without any additional load time perceived from the user. Like I said, it makes it feel like it's an app that's already been downloaded because of this ahead of time feature. Something I'm going to go into a bit more detail later as well. I've got an with SSR in Next.js. Like I mentioned, SSR can be quite costly to the server because it's making it do some more work. But using just a little bit of simple caching can just make your server load ease up on that, as well as just everything working a lot nicer with your project. So what I've used for this example is a plugin called LRU Cache. LRU means least something resource. Shit. Okay. And another note on the guys at Zeit. They basically released a React 16 compatibility patch almost immediately as React 16 came up. So I do want to kind of give them props for really looking after their project and looking after their work, and it is being maintained really well. So it's another reason to kind of try Next.js out. So here's my second live demo. So all I've done is just start up another project here. Let me just turn this one off and npm run dev again. So this is very similar to an Express server, as you may have all created in the past. So you're just importing Next, LRU cache, and Express. This little bit of code here, that kicks off Next, and that tells it whether it's working in production or whether it's working in dev. And under here, you're initializing your cache. So you can have a maximum of 100 items. You can change this. And the items in your cache will stay there for an hour. So you're kicking off your app like this. You're starting Express. And you'll see here that you're just getting the page like normal. But then once you go into in this little code block, you'll find this render and cache method. And that's something I've written down here. And all it does, it just simply looks in your cache to see if you've got if the key you're passing it is already in your cache. And if it is, it will return the location of that page and load it a lot quicker than if it wasn't. On the other hand, if it's not in there, it will let you know that it's not in the cache, set the key to the page, and then just render it through Express as normal. So if I go here, it's already loaded, so we're going to see cache was hit down here. Cool. But if we go and do something like blog and first, the first time we hit it, it's going to say that the cache missed because we haven't gone in there before. And then if we load it again, it's going to say that the cache hit. So that is just like another easy way to resolve that issue that I brought up to earlier with Next.js not working, with SSR having quite an effect on your server. Cool. So overall, Next.js, I'm a big fan of it. As you probably guys have guessed, I wouldn't do a presentation on it if I hated it. I was so confident with using it that I actually used it for job interviews. When I was given a little task to do at home over a couple of days, instead of faffing around with all your basic setting up, which can take a few hours in itself, 10 minutes and I've got a Next.js project set up. And it's just worked really well in the past with me. I know a guy from Facebook, well, I don't know him personally, but Dan Abramov, he tweeted that his friend liked Next.js. So if that's if that's not a glowing recommendation, guys. Like I said earlier, the documentation is impeccable. The guys at Zeit literally shit out examples. There are probably about 36 examples for all the possible use cases you could want from Next.js. Easy to use as well. And like I said, huge variety of examples. Don't like repeating myself. But most importantly, it is just really fast. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I know it's a bit rocky, but I really appreciate you guys being kind. Hit me up on social media if you want to talk code, talk music, chat to me at the pub. I'm sure we'll probably all go there afterwards. And yeah, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Any questions? Cool. Oh, God. Hello.
In keeping on my theme, you have been very, very positive. And it's great to do positive talks. I love doing positive talks. What has been the biggest pain point in using Zeit for you?
I really like Sass. And integrating Sass with Next.js, I find, had a bit of a pain. We tried working it in the previous job I was at, and it probably took us about a week until we realized there was a plugin that got all of the Sass functionality like nesting and variables done out of the box. So yeah, that's probably more my fault than Zeit's.
So are the plugins not super discoverable, or was it just a sort of a user error?
I think it was more of a case we wanted to kind of use as few plugins as possible, kind of see what Next.js had to offer before kind of going and finding a plugin to solve every little issue.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Cheers. Cool.
Hello.
Hey.
First of all, congratulations for your first talk. It was amazing. You have talked about prefetch,
Yeah.
where it fetches the pages, not it's loaded on the first one.
Yeah.
So let's say in all those pages
Yeah.
are prefetched, you have a fetch to the server to get some data,
Yeah.
as a CMS, for example. When you use the prefetch, does it fetch the server too, or just the page itself on Next.js?
That's a really good question. And if you go on GitHub and file that as an issue, the guys at Zeit will be really happy to answer it. But no, in all seriousness, it will just load the page that you want. It will make a server request, but it won't. It will just kind of find the page like I showed you with the cache, for instance. It will just kind of search for that page and return it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Cool. Oh no.
Hi, Rico.
Hi, Tom.
Just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Last week was fantastic, and I just want to know, how's your new job going?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I used Next.js for the interview, and I got the job.
Congratulations, by the way.
And as bad as it sounds, my ex-manager taught me how to use Next.js, so I feel like I kind of stabbed him in the back a little bit there. But no, everything's all good. Thanks.
Nice one.
Cool. Thanks a lot, guys.